Hey students, this is lesson 431. In this lesson, you should be able to evaluate square roots, decimal form. We are going to do a couple of review problems so we're reminded how to do it. And actually, I'm going to let you pause right now, do 21 through 24, and I'll check back with you. All right, here's the answers you should get. I want to talk about a couple things. Don't confuse area with perimeter. Area is what's inside. So for like this problem, it says the area is 100. That means there's 100 of some kind of square units inside the square. So you need to figure out what number times itself, since both sides are the same on a square. What number times itself equals 100. And you could abbreviate that this way. So s squared equals 100. And you probably got this one wrong because you didn't think that of the two solutions. 6 times 6 is equal to 36, and so is -6 times -6. So there's two numbers multiplied by themselves that equal 36. So this one has two solutions. And our exponential notation for that would look like this. So 6 squared and -6 squared. All right. We're going to move on here, and some of you may remember that the way we find a number multiplied by itself that equals something is we use this thing called the square root. So if I put, like, let's say x in here, what this is telling me is that the square root of x is the number multiplied by itself that equals x. So what times what equals x. And just a simple example here, the problem we just did, the square root of 1 equals 10 because 10 times 10 equals 100. And remember that we can abbreviate 10 times 10 as 10 to the second. So you might notice that the square root and the second power are actually inverses of each other. They're related. And another thing you should know about that is that square roots work like powers. So the rules that you apply to exponents will work for square roots also. All right, so let's do a few examples. The square root of 1, and you could use your calculator to do this, but I want you to do as much of this mentally as you can. So what number times itself equals 1? And that number is 1. Now, if there's actually, if you think about this, if you want to solve this, so what number times itself equals 1, there's actually two choices, 1 and -1. Every positive number actually has two square roots because a negative times negative is positive. The way we're going to show the one we want is by the sign in front. So number 2 here says we want the negative square root of 16. So that's 4. That's -4. And so this equals 1. And your check of that is 1 times 1 equals 1. -4 times -4 equals +16. And that negative sign in front makes it -16. For this one, 0.25, what you want to think about there is you might not be able to find the decimal, but you can find the square root of 25. The square root of 25 is 5. So the square root of 0.25 is 0.5 because 0.5 times 0.5 equals 0.25. All right? And with fractions, remember I said that square roots work just like exponents, and they do. And remember with exponents, when you're doing a fraction, you can just take the power of the numerator and that power to the denominator. You can do that with square roots also. You can just do the square root of 25 separately from the square root of 36, which makes it not so hard. The number multiplied by itself that equals 25 is 5. The number multiplied by itself that equals 36 is 6. All right? So I think I might have you do these set of problems when the video ends today, just as a practice, and we can talk about those in class. All right, we're going to skip to page 3 and do a few problems from there. Problem number, oops, sorry, page 2. 7, 8, 9. 7 says, how many square roots does a positive number have? So what, we did this example. What numbers times themselves equal 100? And remember, there's 2 of 10 squared and negative 10 squared. Both equal 100. So every positive number has 2 square roots. How many square roots does 0 have? There's only one number multiplied by itself that equals 0, and that's 0. So 1. In a set of real numbers, how many square roots does a negative number have? So, like negative 100, what number times itself equals that? There is none, because 10 times 10 is a positive 100, and so is negative 10 times negative 10. So, none for that one. All right. And in the vocabulary here, when you undo the process of squaring a number, you find the square root. So squaring and square root are inverses of each other. Okay, and the radical sign indicates the number multiplied by itself that equals that, or the square root of that number. That's called the radical sign. So square root, or the number multiplied by itself that equals that. How do you indicate the negative square root of a number? You use a negative sign in front of the square root symbol. Okay, I'm going to skip to numbers. We're going to go to number 9 on page 8, or page 6 right now. That's right here. Okay. I want to look at a couple things here. And number 9, it says the square root of 26 squared. And you can go ahead and try this on your calculator, the square root of 26 squared, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so here's how you do the square root. So notice there's a parentheses around the square root of 26. So let's put that in there first. So we have the square root of, and then we're going to do second. All right, square root button, you have to press the blue button first and then the x squared. And then inside we're going to put 26. And then if you have the newer calculator, you have to press the right arrow to get out of that. Then put another parenthesis in the second power, like that. And when you hit enter, you get 26. And some of you are probably thinking that anyway, because the square root and the squared undo each other. So they're inverse functions. So this equals 26. This one you'll find equals 0.09. This one here, when you take a negative times negative, you get a positive 9, and the positive square root of 9 is 3. So notice we started with a negative 3, but we ended up with 3. So in general here, what we're saying is the square root of x squared will equal x. In other words, the same thing as the base, as long as x is positive. If x is negative to begin with, then we're actually going to get the opposite of what we started with, like we did in this problem. So it's equal to the opposite of x. And don't remember that when you take the negative of a negative, it's really a positive. So when x is negative, that happens. All right, we're going to do a couple equations now, so you can see how we do those. And we're going to go down to number 19 here and start with that one. So basically what we're trying to figure out here is the square root of what number equals 4. Now one way you can solve that is, remember, the square root of x squared is just x. So if I square this number over here, it's going to equal to x. And that makes sense because you want the square root of something to equal 4. So if that number was 16, that would work. Okay? And let's go up and do number, let's see here. I think I'm just going to add one here so you can get a simple problem like this. What if I wanted to do this? Say we wanted this to equal negative 4. Now, if you square negative 4, you get 16, right? So, and you'll say, all right, so x is 16, but wait a minute. The positive square root of 16 is not -4. It's actually +4. So this solution doesn't work. And so when you're trying to make the square root a positive square root, remember, it's a positive square root if there is no sign in front of it. It's a negative square root if there's a negative in front of it. If you're trying to make that equal -4, that can't happen, so there's no solution. So number 17 is kind of like that too. If we work backwards and subtract 8 from 1, we get -7. So we end up with this. And right there, we want the positive square root of x plus 2 to equal -7. That can't happen. So there's going to be no solution to that. Let's do one more equation here. We're going to do number 20. So you learn how to do that. Remember that a squared undoes a square root. So if I take the square, if I square this, I get x plus 4. If I square this, I get 100. So we want x plus 4 to equal 100. And we can just subtract 4 from 100 to get x. And that's 96. Not 0.96, but 96. And so, and then we'll just check that. Is this true? 96 plus 4. Square root of that, is that equal to 10? And that's 100. And so the positive square root of 100 is 10. That's true. All right. That's it for this lesson. Go ahead and go back and do those ones I asked you to do. And we'll talk about this next time we meet in class.